So this is a little bit loaded because it could easily sort of degenerate into a sort of witch hunt, right? Something is done there, like there's the army developed the atomic bomb, and the atomic bomb was only possible because of development in fundamental physics. So let's make Albert Einstein accountable for it. So we need to be careful in the attribution of responsibility, because there's a long chain from Albert Einstein to the launching of the atomic bomb, and a lot of responsibility needs to be taken along that chain. But with economists, sometimes it's somewhat easier to do that, because not only they're not just writing the papers and participating in conferences and giving generic advice. Sometimes economists are directly advising not only policymakers, but companies and other important actors and or associations, corporations, sometimes workers associations. So there are economists that advise unions and so on. So in that case, when I think it's direct attribution of some decision and some policy, then the economists should be held accountable in the same way that any person with authority in an organization could be the chief financial officer of a bank. All the decisions were made under the chief financial officer, so the chief financial officer should be held accountable. Banks also have chief economists, and it is the case that they have to answer for the policies and decisions that the banks make. And I have heard from some chief economists of banks precisely that they have given advice, then the advice was neglected. And if that can be documented, that, it's like the medical system acting against medical advice, right? So if some bank or some corporation or some association acted against the advice of their chief economist or of their economic council, then no, right? Then you cannot blame the economists for something that they were saying that they should be doing the opposite. But in many cases, it's not like this. You can actually pinpoint specific decisions, especially in the realm of regulation and other areas of government, where it's easy to identify a kind of revolving door, right? So I'm not going to cite names, but people can easily search for economists that went into government, implemented policies and decisions, most often about regulations that affect part of industry, then come out of government and go to work for that specific industry. So in that case, is evident that the economists should be responsible for the effects of whatever policy or regulation or deregulation happen. And sometimes it happens again. They then go back from industry into the next administration once there is a change in government. And this should not be, ideally should not be allowed to be so explicit, this kind of influence. But if it does exist, and then you have some negative consequences, and it could be in the financial industry, but it could be in some other types of industry, car manufacturing or tobacco or what have you, that where there are measurable consequences of what's happening, and then not only the economists, in the same way that you would hold executives of corporations and public officers, right? So accountable, then the economists that participated on that should be accountable. But like I said at the start, this should not be an intellectual witch hunt, because intellectual disputes are difficult to arbitrate, right? So we still don't have a final answer for questions like should the government spend more to make an economy recover or not. I have a particular belief, and it's a belief grounded on my own research and the research that I have read from others. But my answer is yes, the government should do it. But I know equally passionate and genuine people who think that the answer is no, the government shouldn't be spending, because some notion of austerity and return of confidence is the right thing to do. And then some policy is actually implemented, and then there are things that happen. For example, one might say, the cut into hospital budgets led to an increase in amount of death. Well, should the economists that promoted austerity be charged with those deaths? It's very diffuse, right? Because a lot of things happen in between. There are a lot of and this might be a way for just denying responsibility, but I think at that level of uncertainty on the effects of policies, and actually not settling what the right directions are or are not, trying to determine it with the level of precision that is required for attribution of guilt in a legal way, right? In a sort of in the way that in the legal system you have to say that. So what are the conditions? It needs to be beyond reasonable doubt, right? So I think the threshold of beyond reasonable doubt is not reached in those cases. But in the cases that I mentioned before, where it's a direct person that made a concrete advice for a specific change in regulation, and that change in regulation caused some measurable effect, well, then no doubt, and I think the legal system has ways of attributing responsibility to that.